What is up, everyone? Stonepost 34 bringing you actually more growing up with Stonepost. This is a bit of a serious one, and I'll jump into it rather quickly. This summer, we have a few rental properties in our house. We had everything painted. It was ridiculous. I mean, the Kansas summers here, we've been over 100 degrees for like 40 days. I mean, so paint is so important to maintain the quality of your property. So we had them all painted. Now, one of my tenants calls me and says, actually, I had another guy lined up to do it. Painters are not super dependent. I don't want to say they're not dependent, but not real dependent. So he said he had a buddy of his that would like to paint one of our properties, which is the one he lived in, and he wound up painting all our properties. So I call this guy. I don't know him real well. I just know that he's friends with one of my tenants, who's actually a great tenant. I've had him for about 4 years, and no complaints. So I thought, it's kind of a character reference, so we'll go ahead and go with this guy. He paints that property, comes over to our house. He starts painting our house. This was just about 3 weeks ago. And my neighbor will talk to him about painting his house. Now, here's the funny part. It's not funny. It's just kind of interesting. So my neighbor calls me after he meets with my painter, who's already started painting my house, painted one of my rentals, and is going to paint another one, and says, did you talk to Paul? And I said, yeah. He goes, you know what's going on with him? And I said, no, not, I know he's kind of on hard times, and every time I write him a check, he goes straight to the bank and cashes it. I mean, that's, to me, means that he needs the money. And he's a good painter. He said, well, I did a little research after he told me what he said, and it's legit. He murdered somebody. I'm like, oh my God, what? This guy's not in jail? What's going on? Well, it's a little more complicated than that. So my neighbor, who's he maybe wants to get me riled up a little bit, maybe oversimplified the fact that he killed someone. Well, it's true. So I didn't say anything to Paul, my painter, and the next day we're out in the front yard. And he says to me, he goes, it's just been really tough. We just moved. They moved from another town, which is a trashy town near where I live. And they just moved here. He said, I just need a fresh start. He goes, I really appreciate what you're doing. He's so sincere. He just said, I really appreciate what you're doing and helping me out. And, it's no big deal because he's, offering me a service in return. It's not that I'm just giving him free money. But he said, ever since the incident, and I played dumb. Well, here's what happened. It freaked me out a little bit. But he's just a good guy, and I guess I wasn't concerned. I feel like I'm a good judge of character. So here's the deal. He said he has a second wife, and she has 2 kids on her own. And then he has 3 kids, I believe, with her. 2 kids. I'm not sure. I met most of them. They're good people. And he said, so they were living in this town nearby, and she'd been dating this gangbanger, this guy who's in gangs, basically, and messed up in drugs and this and that. And he would beat it's his stepdaughter, beat his stepdaughter. She'd come back. It was kind of a vicious cycle, he said, coming back. And, he said, you just keep going back to her. I don't know why you're doing this. And she, just continued this process. Well, it kind of came to a head. And she got beat up, came home, and Paul said, you need to leave. I've got other little kids here. They don't need to be seeing this. He's coming over. Just, you need to leave. I'm sorry. Well, she didn't. She was really scared. Well, he comes banging on the door. And loud enough, Paul said, to wake up the neighbors. And I believe it because they were witnesses to all this. So he comes banging on the door. Paul tells him to get the bleep out of off his property and out of his yard. And Paul, I got to tell you, I didn't tell you this earlier. Paul's older. Paul's actually just had a birthday last week. Paul's 65. You wouldn't know it looking at this guy. This guy could kick my ass, basically. He's about 6'1". He's got Popeye arms and he's really fit. He's a painter. So he's got a lot of forearm strength and such. So he said, I'm going to kick your ass. Get out of my way. So the kid comes barging in, this gangbanger. He hits Paul in the side of the face, and this is all firsthand from Paul, and then pushes Paul into his recliner. Now this freaked me out a little bit. This is the part that freaked me out. So Paul's like, so I went down and I'm falling back in my chair, and he goes, I always keep in my chair, underneath my chair, I always keep like a 12-inch Bowie knife. I'm like, why do you, I mean, I didn't say it, but I'm like, why do you have that knife under your chair? I don't carry a knife under my chair. I don't know. That just kind of freaked me out a little bit. So he said he grabbed for the knife. The kid came at him again, and just instinct, Paul took the knife and went straight to his chest. And he said right in the middle of his chest, caught him. And that just stunned him, basically. Paul got up, pushed him on the couch. Now he said when he pushed him on the couch, that's when the kid really felt the knife, and I'm sure he doubled over, and I don't know. I've never done that before, but I'm sure that let him feel the knife even more, and basically the guy died on his couch. Now that kind of freaked me out a little bit, but I mean, he's a good guy, and he was trying to protect his family. Now, and then he started crying to me. He said, the worst part, Greg, he said, my kids saw it. All his little kids saw it. And I just felt so bad for him. So the police officer showed up. The police officers, this guy had like 5 warrants out for him, have been looking for this guy for months. And he's a known, he's got felony warrants out for him. He's a known gangbanger. He's a drug dealer. He's been beating people up and such. So this guy, Paul said, the police officer and the detective said, don't feel bad, Paul. You'll have to go, to court and such, but you kind of did us all a favor. And I don't know. It's a little bit different, but it's what happened. It's in the paper. I'm not going to post it because I don't want people to know who Paul is. But other than that, guys, it's kind of a freaky deal. And he's still a friend. I call him. I've been lining work up for him, and I hope he does well. It's just one of those things, man. I'd probably do the same thing if someone was beating up my daughter. I would definitely take them to task, and I don't know if I'd kill them, but that's one thing that if they came at me. And the other thing is the guy had a gun in his pocket, so you don't know. I mean, maybe he would have used that as well. So, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it as always, and take care. This is Stone Post 34.
German. Yeah, I know, it's German.